Good evening. Oh yeah, good evening.
Yeah, yeah, now 12 midnight
Hello.
from Dubai.
Oh, hello, Dr. Greenberg.
Should we stay on mute?
Yep.
Uh,
You all can, that would be great. It'll just allow us to move smoothly through the webinar, and we'll have lots of time to talk when we get to our breakout session. So thank you very much. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're on time and people are logging in. So thank you, everybody, for being here for this webinar about best practices for integrating aquifer cases into allopathic and osteopathic medical education. I'm Sherilyn Smith. I am the Chief Academic Officer for Aquifer. I'm also a professor of pediatrics at the University of Washington School of Medicine. I've been a pediatric clerkship director, taught in clinical skills courses for first and second years, run a fellowship, and I'm now currently the clinical skills learning specialist still at University of Washington as well. Whoops, here we go. So here are our learning objectives today. We're going to talk through some of the pedagogical underpinning of the aquifer cases, really why we build the cases the way they are and how they help students to learn. We're going to talk about some tips for using the aquifer cases, both in this introduction session as well as in all of our breakouts. And then there'll be an opportunity for you all to ask questions and learn about what additional resources are available. So I am so pleased that we have so many wonderful presenters today. Dr. Eric Langenau, who is an associate professor and chief academic technology officer at the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, is going to be presenting in our breakout session for our osteopathic colleagues. We are hopeful that Dr. Barbara Capozzi will also be able to join us as well. She's the clinical dean at Toro College of Osteopathic Medicine in New York. She's had a family emergency, so we're not exactly sure if she's going to be able to join us, but we are hopeful. Dr. Leslie Fall, who's the CEO of Aquifer and also an adjunct professor of pediatrics at Geisel School of Medicine at Dartmouth, is joining one of my colleagues at University of Washington, Dr. Karen McDonough, who's an associate professor of internal medicine and runs the clinical skills, clinical foundations of clinical medicine course. And they will be talking about how to use aquifer cases in the pre-clinical setting. And I am fortunate to have Dr. Mandy Segal joining me. She's an associate professor of family medicine as well as geriatrics at the Florida Atlantic University College of Medicine. And we'll be talking about how to use the aquifer cases in allopathic clinical medicine. So here's our agenda. We're going to spend about 5 minutes with introductions and a little bit of overview. Then we're really going to dive down into the aquifer pedagogical approach. Then we'll move to breakout sessions and spend 30 minutes there, and then come back for a final wrap up for the last 5 minutes. Here are a few logistical notes just to help us move through things smoothly. Please mute yourself or disable your video. You're going to be automatically muted here, but in the breakout sessions, as you move into those, please also mute yourself and then unmute if you have a question. We really encourage you to put all of your questions in the chat. We have people moderating the chat real time right now, as well as in your breakout session. So we'll be able to answer your questions as we go along. And then you're going to automatically move to your breakout session after about 25 minutes here. And this is going to be determined on the choice that you selected when you registered for the webinar. So a little bit about my story. Why am I the Chief Academic Officer at Aquifer? I have been with this type of teaching from the very beginning. So Aquifer started a long time ago with a collaboration of pediatric educators through the COMSEP, the Council on Medical Student Education in Pediatrics. And we came together and decided that we all had a need to have consistent education throughout the year in pediatrics. And that was really hard because of the seasonality of the types of cases we saw. Dr. Fall and her colleagues wrote a couple of HRSA grants. And from that collaboration between the national organization and our members, we created CLIP, which was the first of the courses that eventually came to be Aquifer. I've had the privilege and pleasure of using Aquifer cases from the very beginning. I was a case author and integrated the cases into my clerkship, the pediatric clerkship, beginning in about 2002, and have used them throughout all phases of education at the University of Washington. I was fortunate to become the editor-in-chief with Mike Dell, who's at Case Western, and then transitioned to become an academic director, and then I stepped into the role of chief academic officer in January. And I think that one of the things that keeps me coming back is this great collaboration model that Aquifer has, and I feel so fortunate to be able to work with so many colleagues around the country. And while it started in pediatrics, I think that the richness is because we have internal medicine colleagues, family medicine colleagues, geriatrics colleagues, radiology colleagues, people from all over the country, including basic scientists who are working together to make this a great educational experience for our students. And here's our mission, and I think that it speaks to the collaborative model that I talked about, as well as our dedication to really having a high value education for our students. So we've really been dedicated to delivering the best healthcare education through collaborative development and research into innovative, high impact virtual teaching and learning methods, really from the beginning. And this little slide gives you an idea about the impact. Aquifer is not very big, the actual organization. We are very fortunate that we have almost 250 health professional educator contributors. So these are the people who review our cases, our content, make sure that they're up to date, write assessment questions, and help create educator guides. You can see that a lot of allopathic and osteopathic schools were using Aquifer before COVID, the coronavirus hit, and we have this incredible disruption right now. And you can see here that just in April, after we made our entire case library open to people, almost more than 500 programs actually have been using Aquifer content for free as part of the COVID response. As I mentioned, we have rich collaborations with 13 national organization partnerships, including ACP, IAMC, and all of STFM, a lot of the different organizations that I mentioned before. And we do give back through educational grants to foster innovation and research. So when I think about the Aquifer and the way that we teach and how I see it settling within sort of all of the options that you have for medical education, I think that, I think that one of the true great things about Aquifer and what we really focus on is development and fostering of our students' clinical reasoning skills. That has been at the basis of everything that we have done, and the cases are built to be able to support that. In addition, there's really deep content. It's in all of our specialties. It's linked to the National Clerkship Organization learning objectives, so you can feel confident that it's well vetted and what other educators around the country think are important. And embedded in the cases are modeling of behaviors that we think excellent practitioners will have. And I think of these cases as really preparing to be excellent practitioners. And it's through using these cases in conjunction with teachers, I think that we can really optimize what we're doing. And I think that it's really important now because we want to make sure our students are ready when they get back to clinic. We know this has been so disruptive and stressful for them. And I think that figuring out how to use these cases can really increase their confidence, I think it can also increase their skills and knowledge. So when they're ready to see real patients, you can be confident in them and they can be confident in themselves. So what I'm going to do now is get out of this slide set and then walk through what it's like to be in Aquifer. And so hopefully you all have been able to go in and look around and look at some cases, but this is a quick overview really with a focus on why we built the cases that we have. So here's what it looks like when you log into either the mobile app. So all of our cases are available on a mobile app for you or your students or on your web page. And this is what it looks like. So you'll see an overview of educator resources, student resources. If your school subscribed to the COVID-19 response, and I'm going to go in and look at that, you also may have subscribed to WISE MD, which is a surgical cases, or WISE on Call, which is the preparation for residency courses. And you can access both of those. Those are provided by our partners at NYU. The COVID response here includes our 5 signature courses, so family medicine, internal medicine, geriatrics, pediatrics, and radiology. And the number of cases within each course varies anywhere from 19 to 40. So you get a total of 146 different cases, different patient cases to work with. In addition to those signature courses, what we call signature courses, you also get 5 free courses, which include diagnostic excellence, really focused on preventing diagnostic error, high value care, culture and health, medical home, and oral case presentation case. All of those are available to you. So you have a really rich set of cases to choose from when you're trying to create your learning experience. If you haven't had a chance, and so that's a lot of cases to work through, we have something up here at the top called the case library that takes you to our searchable case library. And so up at the top, then you can see that you have 197 matching choices for like, how do I figure out what I want to teach with? And so this, all of our cases are actually tagged with multiple descriptors, so you can sort depending on what you want to do. So for example, if you really only want to have geriatrics courses, you can just select the geriatrics courses right there and they will appear below. One of my favorites is if you are a neurologist or you are interested in women's health, the cases that are not part of our signature courses that really deal with that content are listed here, so you can create a custom neurology course or a custom psychiatry course based on what we have offered here. If you are trying to structure some of your learning around specific systems like cardiovascular system or gastrointestinal, you can do the same search function and find all of the cases that have to do, say, with hematopoietic anemia, whether or not there's leukemia, things like that. So you can search on those, pull them out, and then create a custom course. So I think that this gives you just a way to think about how do I begin to make sense of all of these. And then you can actually create custom courses, and we have some great videos about exactly how to do that, and then how you can use that function as you create your own course. So a couple more things that I'd like to show you here before we actually go into the cases is one of the educator resources. So I would say that this is the place that you should go and spend some time really understanding what's available in each one of the courses. We've created they're all very similar in structure and available for all of our cases. And so, for example, this is the Diagnostic Excellence Educators Resources. This is actually one of our free courses. You click there and then you'll be able to see the educator guide. It really goes through the course overview, why the cases are built the way they are, our case list, and then actually for diagnostic excellence, you can also get a, I'm gonna close that out, that you can, you get ready-made, you get ready-made learning activities. So right here are worksheets. So if you're looking for strategies to flip the classroom, build in interactive materials linked to our cases, right here in your educator guides. Similarly, there are student resources that when you are talking to your students about the cases, make sure that they know that they're clinical practice guidelines, lab reference values, as well as one of my favorites is a pediatric developmental milestones module that interacts with, it's interactive. And I think it's really unique and a great way for students to learn about development, which is a hard thing to talk about. So what I'd like to do now is to go actually into the COVID response. This is what it will look like when you get into your case library. This is very similar to what the students will see. And I'm going to go into family medicine case 5. I just want to show you something that you will see, and it links to one of the questions that somebody asked us about, is how do you bring everybody up to speed, all of your other instructors up to speed on what's in the cases. And the case synopses, which are available in the educator guides, give you a quick overview of what's actually in the case, talks about the differential diagnosis and the final diagnosis. So this is a great way to interact and to engage your faculty in figuring out what's in the case and how they can teach about it as well. So when we go into the case, this is, I'm going to show you, let me just close these up here. I'm going to show you kind of the way the case flows. The student view actually is gated, so they will just see one page at a time. You as the instructor can see all of this, and you'll see that they're a little tagged with either history, clinical reasoning, teaching, physical exam. And so the case is constructed to represent a typical type of visit or a patient interaction. So I think that that's one of the great things about this, and why we built them the cases the way we did, is that it's situated learning, so that students are going to learn which questions to ask, how to think about problems in the context of a patient case. And this is fundamentally different than what how they would learn if they were just reading from a textbook. So you can see that students would, open the page, they read, they see some visuals, and then they are right off the bat asked about how to think about the differential diagnosis. And so here's the question, and then right here is a text box that they can put their answers in, they submit it, and then they get a teaching point. So right away they get feedback on their thought process. And the other thing that's really great is over on the sidebar here, they can write down their differential diagnosis as they begin to build it working through the case. They can highlight the key findings as well. I think that this represents sort of more advanced clinical reasoning. Early students often grab all of the information that they think that is important, wait to the very end, and create a differential diagnosis. This is actually teaching them early on to gather information as they go, and continuously think about the differential diagnosis, which is one of the things that I really like. As they work through the history, they have the ability to see questions modeled. It's interactive. They have the answers there. And then if they want to learn more, there's something called deep dives. It will explain more about a specific finding on a page. And all the references are right there for them to see as they go through, and they can link out to the original document. You can see that the encounter unfolds exactly like a real case. They go through the review of systems, past medical history, and then there are two things that I really like, again, going back to clinical reasoning. So one of the things that most cases ask them to do is create a summary statement or a synthesis of the patient's presentation to this point. This is a hard task. It requires them to understand what the differential diagnosis is, what the key findings are, and then to write it in a concise manner. So they write it, they submit it, and then they get the answer comment that models what an expert summary statement will look like, as well as to walking them through the key teaching points. So it's a great feedback. And I'm going to come back to the summary statement because this is something that you can actually assess students' progress on in the reports. They then go to the differential diagnosis, they choose their top 5, they submit, and then they get their answers and continued teaching. again with references. So this is really a wonderfully precepted patient encounter, if you want to think about this these best way. I think of them as standardized patients because I know exactly what they're getting. And the student, in some ways, it really levels the student's understanding because you can guarantee that everybody's seeing that awesome patient that you hope most students see when they're on clinical rotations. Working through the rest of the case, the student continues to go through talking about risks, treatment plans, management, follow-up. They continue through the rest of the case, and then they get down to the final and the case summary download. And this is one of the things that the students really like is that at the very end, there's a nice summary of the main problem, all of the knowledge that they were supposed to gather, the differential diagnosis and causes of goiter. It talks about management, testing, and then it talks some about clinical skills that are important with nice videos to reinforce that physical exam learning, management, and then it does talk about the clinical reasoning down below. So again, going back to the differential diagnosis that they talked about. So when you've been, sorry, let me go back. Yep. So you're in your course, you've assigned your students. Now you understand the clinical reasoning. So what about education? And what about following up and seeing if students are actually doing the courses? So what you do on your course page where you have all of your courses outlined is you click on course report. And so that will take you to the reports that we provide you that gives you an overview of the students' performance. And you can see here we've had 3 students to go through our cases. All of the cases take between 30 and 45 minutes to complete. So that's important for you to know as we walk through this assessment. 1, it lets you know how engaged the students are if you keep that in mind and see something different about what they're doing. And 2, it'll help you plan your instructional package. So here you can see that students who haven't started any of the cases, they're red dots, they're partially through, they're yellow, and then they're green if they've gone through, done everything that they're supposed to. If you see a green check with a black circle around it, that means that the case has been reset. For some people, that's important because they assign students a specific time that they're supposed to spend on the cases. And if you see the students are resetting, then that may be a reason to check in with them. If you go to an individual student like I just did and I clicked on, then you can see really how they're doing. And so you can see that this student is blasting through the cases, spending 6 or 7 minutes on for the longest time. So you can get an idea about how long it's taking them to work through the cases, when they started and stopped. And then one of my favorite things, again, going back to the summary statement right here, is that when the student writes something in the summary statement, you can actually see it. And then you can compare it to the expert comment. So if you're looking for ways to see, are the students actually improving their clinical skills, engaging with the case, this is a great way to track your students' performance and get an idea of, are they getting out of the cases what you hoped they would. So that was a quick overview of the pedagogical underpinnings. I think at this point, we're going to get ready to transition to breakout rooms, and then we'll come back together here in about 30 minutes. Again, if you end up in the wrong breakout room, just click return to main room, have a little conversation with Rose, and then we'll get you in the right place. So I hope this was helpful for you. And I think that we have about 30 seconds or a minute, and then we'll all see you in our next session in the breakout rooms.